I really started realizing that living intentionally, whether I was sort of realizing it or not, or putting brain power and effort to it, every minute of every day, really became more about the impact that I could make and the people I surrounded myself with and the missions I was part of. Again, that impact that you were having on the world and the achievements that you were earning, the degree or the career or, whatever that looked like. So, giving yourself the grace and having the flexibility to, I'm going to try this other thing, I think could be helpful.
Hello, welcome everyone to Friday Conversations. We're really excited to be here. Again, this is a weekly conversation we have, so if you can, come join us. We slow down a little bit, just talk, and enjoy. Technical issues.
On me.
But yeah, glad to have everyone here. We have a really great group today, and Dave, can you introduce it?
I'm excited because we're going to learn a lot about Maddie's place today, and that is really, really cool. But before we get that going, and before Deb takes over after John gives the whole relinquishing the whole, it's a long story. But we're going to go ahead and do introductions. I'm Dave Ribble from Stand Up Mastery, and what we do at Stand Up Mastery is help people get a little bit better all the time with their communication, connection, and collaboration skills. So I'm here for that, but I am really looking forward to handing it off to my good friend Zane. Zane, what do you do? Who are you?
Yeah, so I'm Zane Schwendiman. I'm with Go, and we help small business owners get a little bit of their time back. We answer calls and get customers scheduled for you so that you can focus on your trade.
Okay. Name's Brett McMahon. I'm with New York Life. I'm a financial advisor, and we work with people, helping them with their financial security, with protection, growth, and distribution.
Mandy Karstensen with Two Home Loans, and I help a variety of different people secure mortgage loans, and particularly in this market, first-time home buyers. So don't let your loved ones miss out.
Hello, everyone. Rob Reuter here with Edic Designs. I work with people who are trying to get their systems in order and organized so that they can be more effective at their value and not have to work with technology.
Hi, everyone. I'm James from Concierge. That is Conciears. I'm a travel agent whose specialty is most Disney destinations, Universal Studios, and cruises. I offer free travel planning services for those who book with me, helping to plan their trip from start to finish. Anything you can think of, the whole aspect of the trip with tips and tricks, trying to make the vacation planning process with little or no stress.
Awesome. I'm Debbie with Champion Empire. We help business owners who are stressed out, overwhelmed, and stuck without a clear direction or a clear path to their goals. We pair them with a deep bench of advisors and a custom plan so that they can live the life that they were created for.
Hey friends, I'm Steve Hicks with Thriving Body Holistic Fitness, and I am the energy and metabolism coach for people over 30.
I like the friends part. Hi friends, I'm talking with LOMP, Locked.ai. We're a AI tool that allows or helps buyers be placed in front of sellers without being present on your keyboard. Again, LOMP, lots of moving parts. Todd.
I am Leonidas Biron, the son of Jonathan and Melissa Biron, and I'm currently managing my mother's social media.
Awesome.
Jonathan Biron. I am host of this here odd gathering of amazing people, and I am a realtor here in Spokane. And if you were going to buy or sell a house, or if you had a friend or a family member who was, do you have a realtor you would refer them to? If you don't, I'll start with if you do. If you do have a realtor, that's great. It's really important that you have somebody that you trust. If you don't, you should. And if you don't and you need one, I would like to be that person.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Luna. I'm a home loan lender with New American Funding. So we specialize kind of like in solutions-based lending, especially the non-QM or self-employed small business entrepreneurs. and have a solution for all kinds of scenarios. Mark Luna, New American Funding.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Katie Tolley. I'm the Director of Advancement and Marketing for Maddie's Place. We are a small nonprofit nursery here in Spokane. We specialize in caring for infants with prenatal substance exposure and wrapping around their families to support them into recovery so they get to keep custody of their infant and live a full life in recovery.
I'm Melissa Biron with Thrive Wellness, and I help people with their metabolic stability, and that is in a easy and tangible way.
Really good reflection today of just all of the different industries that are represented and how we all can come together and we can all support each other. John, I'm going to turn it over to you. We got a good one today.
We do. I'm very excited about it. Debbie and I were talking just before we got started, and the amount of places that this conversation might go is overwhelming in a good way. Like this is the stuff that we take in, this idea of purpose and how we interact with it. And we very seldom, in my experience, get an opportunity to really verbally process it. So Debbie, I don't want to step on any toes. I want you to kind of introduce Katie and a little bit about why and how we got to this place, and then we'll get the conversation going.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. And something I don't think to say very often, thanks for putting together this group for us. It's such a cool place to come both in person. If you haven't come out in person, you need to. It's a really cool experience. Yes. But also for those who are watching online and able to interact. I know I've had times where I can't make it in person and I'm there just like interacting in the chat. So pitch in. We'd love to hear your thoughts as well for those who are online today. I'm excited. I'm really excited to get a chance to host Katie. And this is the first in a series where we are kind of dividing up the different weeks in the months around a specific focus. And I'm excited to be the intentionality advocate, which basically means that our topic once a month is around intentionality. That's a huge topic. That is an absolutely huge topic that shows up in a lot of different ways. But really, as we think about it, it kind of comes down to how do we do life on purpose? And that can be anything from when we're thinking about our business, what we're more familiar with, strategic planning, purpose, mission, vision, values, all of that kind of stuff, but kind of going like, let's get to the big picture and then get very specific so we know how to make decisions, where we begin, where we end, where we can collaborate with others, where I can go, oh my gosh, Steven doesn't do what I do. I don't do what he does, but I need him to help my clients and to pass that off to him. That it can be as broad or big picture as that for business, for person. And then it goes down to goals, more specifically, how am I going to accomplish that? Then it goes into time and resources. How do I manage my time and resources so that I'm on purpose? And then it really comes down to the individual conversations, the human element. That like, how do I show up in a conversation and, like lock eyes with Zane and have this like deep conversation or not? Because that could be weird depending on the context and how well I know you, right? First time I've met you, like, hello, right? But like, how do I show up on purpose? How do I be present in the moment, right? And, in a business context, how do I do that, enjoy the human, and still be working toward goals together, right? That kind of collaboration toward a purpose and figuring out how we can work together. So with that, that's kind of our big focus for this time once a month. And within that, I'm really excited to bring on our first guest around this particular focus of intentionality, Katie Tolley. So I've known Katie for a couple of years now. I've actually known about Maddie's Place. And I don't know if we ever had this conversation, Katie, but I've actually known of Maddie's Place for a while before that. So I actually was at a functional occupational medicine lecture on integrating reflexes in the nervous system that happened to be attended by their founder. And that was the moment that I found out about Maddie's Place and the incredible work they do that's very specific, that would not have come out of anything but personal experience and someone being like, oh my gosh, this is a need I stumbled across, but it's huge and we need to step in and to fill the gap. Then I got to know Katie and I've known her actually before she was at Maddie's Place in a variety of different contexts. And the cool thing is she's always the same person. She always shows up as the same person with intentionality, which is one of the things that stands out the most about me, about her to me. When you're in a conversation, it's just you and her. She's not, like, you can tell, she's not, maybe she has a tiny bit in the back of her mind, but she's really trying not to be focusing on the 50,000 things she has to do, you know, all the files and the paperwork and the grants and all the different aspects of her role or her life where, you know, she and her husband are very involved and have a full family life and are involved in the community outside of work. She could be thinking about all of those things and working on them, but she's right there with you. And it's this amazing thing that has stood out to me with her. So Katie, I'll ask you some questions and really just give you a chance to tell some of your story. But I just want to start out by saying the thing that really struck me was at our annual night of generosity, Katie stood up and spoke. And one of the things that struck me was her talking about her move from the corporate world to the nonprofit space. Now you can live a life of purpose. You can live with a lot of intentionality on the big scale and the granular scale in any context. It does not all have to be nonprofit, but that was where her heart was drawn. And within that, I also want to point out that she was not the person, or she's not the person every day who's there holding the babies. Doesn't mean she doesn't do it, but that's not where she feels she can make impact and difference. And so that's something I'd love to kind of dive into in our conversation and hear how that applies for various ones of us. What we pull out of that and really to say, how do we walk out of today with a little bit more purpose, a little bit more intentionality, and how we're showing up. So Katie, I want to turn it over to you. Excited to have you here today and love to just have you tell your story, you know, the 3 to 5 minute version, but, you know, just to unpack a little bit of where did you come from? Where are you now? Why? And what does that story look like?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I was not prepared for that kind of introduction. So I want to cry with gratitude. Thank you so much. I was really, really honored to be invited to join the conversation today. And honestly, when Debbie, you know, messaged me and asked if I would be part of this, I thought, why? Why am I the person? You know, oftentimes I feel like I slid into this, you know, just putting out fires and showing up, you know, last minute, and just flying by the seat of my pants sometimes. And then I sat down and sort of thought about what the prompt was for today and the topic for today, and realizing that actually I show up more intentionally than I thought I did. So just a little bit about me. I first and foremost am a mom to a beautiful, almost 11-year-old daughter that is the pride and joy and love of my life. I'm so lucky to get to be her mom. My husband and I also almost a year ago started a foster care journey with a little baby that had actually come through Maddie's place that we are related to and have absolutely fallen in love with. So that is exciting. He is a year old, just turned a year old. And so we're back in the thick of early parenthood. Married to the love of my life and get to work at Maddie's place. So we just, born and raised here in Spokane. I've got my degree from Eastern in marketing and general management. And I had started out, I'd spent about 13 years in a career just out of high school, just doing some, you know, secretarial work and things like that. I didn't know, I'd started out thinking I was going to be a nurse working in the ER, and that's just not where my educational journey took me. And I just thought, I guess business is the way to go. I'll find something I can do with that. But hadn't really figured out what I wanted to do in life. And so it got to a point where I was miserable in that job. I was not happy. I was a brand new mom and I was desperate for something different, where I felt like I was part of the team, that I could contribute something, that I was respected. And I happened, I think I was just sharing with you earlier today, I happened across a Craigslist ad for a job at a local nonprofit here. And I was so thrilled when I was hired as doing some executive assistant work, as well as planning a big fundraising event for that organization. Their focus was on trauma recovery. I'd never worked in the nonprofit industry before, and you know, but I knew I liked planning events and being public facing and that kind of thing. I spent about 7.5 years with that organization and loved it. I remember my husband saying, he was working for a nonprofit at the time, that said, welcome to the bright side. Like, this is where your heart belongs. I really feel like you're gonna be happy here in this industry. And every bit of that was true. And I just didn't know it yet. So when it got time to move on to, you know, a little bit of a bigger challenge, I was hired at Maddie's place as their first director of advancement in marketing. And I've been there going on 2 years now. And again, I think I was sharing with Melissa when we were talking earlier today that, I had somebody say you're going from one really awful thing to another. You've been working with, an organization that focuses on trauma recovery, particularly for youth. And now you're going to go work at an organization that focuses on infants with prenatal substance exposure. Why? And the only thing I could think of was you get to see the beauty that comes out on the other side of that. You get to see, yes, there will always be hard things and hard days, but to get to see the healing and the hope and the happiness that comes out of that work is worth every bit of it. So
that is so cool. That is so cool. Thanks for sharing that, for being with us today. I think something that stands out is how kind of like what we talked about of, you're not there holding the babies, right? How did you get to this role where you were like, that's where I can make a difference?
I think in my work previously, I'd had some fundraising experience. And again, I just kind of, I was excited for the fun or the, event planning portion of things. But with that comes fundraising. And so I was lucky enough to be invited the first year that I had started doing that. Within the first few months, I had a friend that had said, she had also worked in fund development and said, you really got to come be part of this group, development strategies group. They meet once a month, and it's just folks in the fundraising, events, nonprofit space that come together and just support one another, learn from one another, share the good, the bad, the hard, the celebrations, and, just without any cost to it, learning how to be better at what you do. And I needed that mentorship. And so I got to be part of this beautiful group of nonprofit folks. I also joined the Northwest Development Council. That was another place that I learned from. And so, I found that I could be good at what I did. Again, I not intentionally at the time fell into this work. And I'm so lucky that I did. And so I've just kept with that, trying to hone my skills, learn as much as I can, and be as good as I can at what I do. And I was lucky enough to, have Maddie's Place put trust in me to take on their director role, to be able to do this for that organization.
I love that so much. So something that really stands out to me about Katie's story is there's this part where she's doing work that's very intentional, specifically contributing a lot of her life to working in a role that is making far-reaching impact, pulling in the development, development director, pulling in the funding to make that go far and to make impact in specific individuals' lives. But there's also this part that's in there of like, but I didn't intentionally choose this. I just kind of fell into it. And I think that's so life, right? Sometimes we're kind of like, I set out on this mission and then I accomplished the mission, ta-da, right? But most of the time life is, I was feeling dissatisfied, or I was feeling like there was something that was missing. And I stumbled across this thing and all of a sudden I found it was filling me up. And so I'd love to turn the conversation to the group to just share, how has that come across in your life? How has that led you to where you are in your work? Is there something that you're kind of like searching for? Not necessarily like a jump or a change, but something that you're kind of searching for, that spot where the need and your specific gifting or the thing that lights you up fits, as well as just if you have specific questions for Katie that came to mind during the conversation. So jump in.
I'll start. I think for me, with my own journey, it's been really interesting because I started out with being a CNA for quite a while, and my trajectory was being an RN and going to school for that. And then I was like, what am I doing here? And I felt like I was going to disappoint my parents because from a very young age, I was going to be a nurse. And so when I finally confessed to them, I had tears and they were like, that's great. What are you going to do? And I was like, what? But throughout my life, I've always helped people in different ways. John and I worked at a home for children for 7 years. And that, we lived with the kids and we're in a somewhat similar situation of helping kids that were in really tough spots, either abused or neglected in some way or another. And then also, how do we help the guardians with reconnection, just a lot of different areas in that. And then I came to a spot in my life where I was really sick myself. and I needed help. And it took a lot of years, honestly, for me to actually get that help. And then I realized I could do this for other people. And so I got to that spot again of like, okay, that light was, that fire was there again. Like, oh my gosh, I can help people again. And so that's why I help people. And that's why I'm a metabolic stability coach, is because I can help other people. And I know what the pain is because I've been there. So it was like a pain point for me. And then being able to turn that around and help other people. And that fire has been huge for me. And I really wrestled with that. Like, I was getting help myself, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this for other people, because I had been not working for quite a while when we moved here to Spokane. And that, like, how do I do that with 3 little kids and, be at home and help them out, but also help other people and have that mental state again? Because it takes a lot of work to help people. And it takes a lot of mental capacity to help a lot of people. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of been my journey, but I really appreciate you being here. And it when we talked earlier, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that you're saying that I'm like, I remember when, just working at the home for children. There's just a lot of connections there. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was never like, I didn't have a degree. I wasn't a social worker. I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't, hadn't become a nurse. And so the only thing I could ever put words to about, my life's purpose or anything like that was I need to love people. I need to somehow make somebody's life easier or better. I want them to walk away from interactions with me feeling better. And so I did never know what form that would take. And so that's sort of what has led my work, my interactions, my relationships, and I'm lucky enough that I get to do that in a career now.
I had a reaction similar vein, but I was thinking about what you have as innate acumen, skill, whatever, versus what you're passionate about and things. Because growing up, I came from a family of divorce and things, and so my focus was nothing that made me stand out or distinct. I wanted to fit in with so early on I had awareness that computers, technology made sense to me. I was skilled at it without knowing why. I didn't know why I got it. So I avoided it through my teen year and all the way through college. I did not want this ability because it made me, at the time, geek. Who are these? They were on the edge, and I wanted to be in the middle of things. But it was at graduate school when I finally embraced that, this stuff made sense to me, developing things. But now after years of being really good at the technology stuff, I finally have been working on the bridge between those of saying, much like Katie's saying, is life is important to me when I can have impact, when I can make a difference for somebody. But I also know my greatest value is when I can do something for someone that they just can't figure out on their own. So that's why I embrace systems and data and databases and all of that stuff. But it's that relationship. It's building connection to people that matters to me the most. And if I can do it with technology, great.
I love that you talk about the connection and the relationship piece. Sometimes I've said I selfishly do things because it brings my heart joy to support somebody. So if I can get some joy out of it and it just, brings me some peace. But in sort of reflecting on today's topic, really realized how much closer it's brought me in relationships, how many, you know, friends I've made and, you know, have connected with colleagues and mentors and things. I think it just brings you, again, closer to people. You bring people into your circle that you intentionally want to be there. You make those choices and
I think just my perspective of it is that, you know, ideally as humans, we would love to always have that vantage point of being at the top of the mountain and being able to be like, yeah, that path leads there and that one leads there. And that's the one that I took. You can see it right there, my little path. But we very rarely get that perspective. And so rather than seek it for a norm, really basking in the glow of those moments where you get to be at the top of that mountain and kind of look back of, wow, you know, I was doing this thing that didn't really even match up with kind of what I first intended. And then it even morphed into something I didn't really even know what to call. And then now here I am. And I never would have been here without all of those things. And that when you're in the valley and you don't know even what to call the moment that you're in, to really know, like, there is, you know, the universe, something, my intention is working for good. It is following me down a path, and it's not always clear and concise. But you do get those beautiful moments where you're like, I never could have gotten here without there. And that it does turn into purpose if you're looking for it.
Well, you bring up an excellent point with that because I've been doing this for quite a few years now, but back then I would never have guessed being a travel agent or being in the travel industry. And to be honest, I have my wife to thank for that because I did the whole thing. I went to school. I got a bachelor's in accounting because that was the thing my dad approved of. And so what miserable as much as I didn't want to admit it, I didn't want to take the CPA. I didn't want to do anything, but I was stuck. Nobody would hire me to go up, saying you need more experience, you need a master's degree. I'm like, I don't want to go back to school. I already graduated. I already got the student loans to pay off. I don't want more. But my wife kept asking me, are you really happy with this job? Like, well, what do you mean? Am I happy? I'm supposed to go to school and do this thing. Well, and then she was the one who was like, well, here's what I've noticed. When we travel, you're always researching what there is, what to do. You're the type of person who does not mind spoiling yourself, especially watching all the YouTube videos and stuff. And when people ask you about things, especially Disney related, you give them tips. So it's like, why don't you do this? And she quoted a Disney travel agent, and I'm like, is that a thing? I've never heard of this. Because I always thought of a travel agent as just someone you go to a corner, who's in a corner office with their computer and just like, oh, let's see what we can book flights and hotels to. And tried to find I found a little company who had just barely started. But what drew me to them was their passion for helping people. And it also drew me that because I remember the good times with traveling, but also, sometimes the most stressful times. Seeing my parents struggle to find the right place to go, dealing with problems, taking away from the family time. And it's allowed me to not only just take what I've learned and help people, but also, like you said, make those connections that I never thought I would. Some clients of mine have become really good friends, or just, very friendly, and some colleagues that just have been closeness. And it's something I never really realized that I would. And there are some things I just would have never done. Kid me would never think of this. But now I get to, not only that, my kids think I have the coolest job in the world. Plus, I am living again through their eyes, seeing all the stuff going on these vacations and seeing them experience it. And I love sharing that to, especially families with young kids such as myself, whether it's your first timer or you've gone yourself, but then you're going again as an adult.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, James. I was really hoping you would speak up because you have a business or a niche that is so specific And I love that. As a business advisor, I'm like, oh, that lights me up, because most people are afraid to get that specific. They're like, oh, I'm gonna give up on too much business. I should just call myself a travel agent.
Yeah.
But, you know, one of our advisors who specializes in that, she talks about it as specific is terrific, right? So I just love how specific that is. But bringing it back to that conversation, one thing I keep hearing in this conversation is, like, do we really have the 30,000-foot view to go like, I'm 5 and I shall now plan my life, right? Like, I think the phrase you used was, kid me would never have thought of this. How many people are currently in industries, working jobs, you know, having businesses that kid you would have thought of?
Accidentally. No, like really, like, and it really is, it hardly counts. But there was an open commercial space like back when I was in 3rd grade or something. And me and my neighbor were like, we should make money. Of course, we weren't going to rent anything, but we thought that would be the perfect place to have a gym. And we knew nothing about gyms because we were in 3rd grade. We'd never been in a gym, but it seemed like a way to make money. And so we called the place, tried to get quotes on like what the rent was, and then tried to buy equipment. We had like $20. It was never gonna work. And then I had no intention to be a gym owner or to work in fitness. I was going through school, gonna be like a high school teacher, and then life experiences changed the path. And then like 7-8 years into my career, I remembered that guy reached out to me randomly. I was like, you remember when we want? Hey, I accidentally did the thing we said when we were kids.
So cool. The power of the brain, right? Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing that's really interesting is even that kind of plays into that same theme. Something that I've kept hearing coming up is, I don't think anyone used the phrase, but what keeps popping to my mind is connecting the dots, right? It's kind of going like, okay, I don't have the 30,000-foot view, or I didn't choose this when I was 5, except for Steven. Maybe 3rd grade, right? Like maybe 8, right? But
for like 2 weeks.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, it's
So
not a real
exception.
pursuit.
Power of the brain, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, as we're looking back, as we're taking time, to Mandy's point, to just go, oh my God, this is one of those golden moments. Like, I'm just gonna savor it. Well, then we start going, Melissa, like, I've got a series of these that are starting to stack up of those moments, or I've got something where I'm like, this has been deeply impactful to me. This has changed my life, whatever that thing is. Could I turn around and do that for others? Could I go back for the people who are left behind? And that's a topic that I think is really interesting, because one thing I've found over time is it doesn't matter if that thing that you're being intentional about is feeding the homeless, which I actually hate that phrase, but regardless, right? If it's something that is like so very obviously human driven, human services, nonprofit, which we are so glad you're doing that, but it doesn't matter if that's the industry. It could be manufacturing toothbrush heads, but knowing that what you're doing is helping people not to cut their gums with the old model, not contributing to gum disease, improving the state of the heart, the gut, the digestion, better health, right? Like, just knowing that something that you're doing is making an impact. The other thing that I have a question around, though, that I'm going to throw back out into the group is it okay if you have a goal or a purpose that's outside of your work or your business? Such as, for example, if you have financial goals for your family, you want to be able to put your kids through college. Your dream of your wife is to own that ranch that's like someplace out in the middle of nowhere, and that's where she's been trying to get back to her childhood her entire life, and you know it's going to light her up, but that costs a lot of money, and that means that you're probably going to have to take a path to get there that is not necessarily the thing that like lights you up and makes you super excited all the time. Is that still intentional?
I think if your overarching goal is to go back to like that ranch, and that makes you happier than whatever you're pursuing in the moment, or whatever you would want to pursue, I think that would be overall considered a better goal than going into the job that really makes you excited.
I'm gonna throw out a small tease that I don't have time to, no, I don't. So you're gonna have to do this as homework if you want it. Everybody's familiar with lorem ipsum. Like if you're looking at a website, they forgot to put in block of text and it says lorem ipsum and then a whole bunch of language. Go home and look up lorem ipsum, where that started, where it came from. It is thousands of years old. It is from the original block of text is from like 25 AD or BC or CME or whatever. It's like ancient language. And if find it and look at the translation to English, and it speaks to this. It speaks to it like I will subject myself to something painful in order to derive a pleasure later. And I will enjoy a pleasure now knowing that I will have pain as a result of it. Like it's this stuff that like we like talk for hours and hours and kind of come close to it. It's just like this succinct paragraph hiding in plain sight on every website in the world, not literally, but fabulous. And I think that what you said, Leonidas, triggered that for me. Like it's an interesting tension between, and when you said unintentionally, well, I was like, that was my brain was just like, because it's like this. I talk a lot about rhythm. It's like, yeah, like there's no way, no matter how intentional I try to be, that there's not some aspect of my life that is completely unintentional. And I love this question. I'm curious what everybody else's interactions with it are, as far as like, my goal and ambition is this, and to get there, I have to do something unpleasant that doesn't feel intentional, doesn't feel meaningful. So yeah, that's a great question. And I want to hear what everybody else has to think.
Okay, no one's going. So, the way I really think of this is a lot of different ways. But for me personally, one of the things that I want to do for myself is get stronger. And I have to do certain things that are not always easy or pleasant. And that is working out a certain way. I enjoy working out, but there's things that I've had to change with my workout that are not necessarily pleasant. And with my own health, I've had to change a lot of different things that are not really easy to do. Like I don't have gluten. And there's a lot of people that have gluten, and I'm around gluten all the time. And I love gluten, but I can't have it because it will physically hurt my body. And I've had to just change some things to get the result that I need for myself. And yeah, there's things that we've had to change in our finances to get a result that we want for something else. So there's like this pain, pleasure pull that is not always easy, but also it has to be necessary to get what you want in the end.
I like how you bring that up. It kind of triggered for me, like talking about gluten, right? Like you love that, you want to eat it.
I want it,
but
yeah.
in this case, that's pleasure, but you're avoiding the pain. So
yes,
so that you can experience a different pleasure.
True.
Pleasure of not feeling in pain.
Yeah.
And I was kind of thinking about that with my kids. One thing for me as a parent with my kids is I want to give them the opportunity to be themselves, to be authentic. And you know what? Sometimes that leads to my kids mouthing off a little bit to me, and I never would have done that growing up because I was scared. But that makes my job as a parent harder. But I'm totally okay with that. I'm on board with that because I know it's leading to their joy, their growth, and they're going to be able to be who they need to be in their life versus, and so I'm okay having that pain and discomfort and teenagers mouthing off to me so that they can be who they need to be.
I love that you said that. I really love that you said that. We talk about this in our family quite a bit. Our parents didn't really let John and I speak our mind, and we let our kids speak their mind. And sometimes that is really painful. And Leonidas is in the room. Yeah.
I wasn't talking about you.
No, I'm absolutely not. It is such an interesting thing. And Leonidas knows this and our kids know this. We're like, we let you speak your mind because we were not allowed to. And yes, there is lots of pain with that. And yes, there's boundaries, right? That Leonidas is aware of and our kids are aware of. And if they cross those boundaries, yes, there can be some different expectations of what is spoken or how it is spoken. I mean, I'm mom, right? And that, you know, there's a boundary there. And if it's crossed, I'm gonna let you know. So I love that you said that. And I love that you're allowing that in your home. It's such a needed, important thing that I know and you know, and a lot of us know it's not allowed in homes. And it needs to be.
Of all the places that you could allow for your children to exercise some independence and grow skills, to do it in the environment where they should feel most safe.
Yes.
You're right, it's hard though.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I really like what you said because I had a similar experience where I was preconditioned, and I'm thinking more so of my father, to think a certain way and act a certain way, not really having that opportunity to speak up. Especially as a kid, you don't know what you want to do when you grow up. You'll say it tons of things. And it's like, no, you can't do that. You can't be a baseball player. You can't do this. It's one of those things we're trying to do differently with my kids. Whatever they want to be, you know, the only thing I ask, you're passionate towards something, you know, make sure you're going to put in the hard work to get there because it doesn't come. But my son has gone through different things. He's 8. He's not going to know exactly what he wants.
Unless it's stable.
I've heard lifeguard, I've heard astronaut, I've heard my job. My daughter is the cutest one. She wants to be Cinderella at Disneyland. So who am I to say that it's like, if that's what you want to do? And it's just having that freedom, and it's sometimes painful for me because I'm having to learn to be open, not only with myself, but my wife and kids. And it's not always the easy thing to do, but to try to encourage them to be open. Tell me how you're feeling, tell me what's going on. So that way I can better help you. And know that you're not trying to be punished or anything, unless there are times where that is mandatory. It is part of the job, but not make them feel like they're unsafe in their own home.
It's huge. This makes me feel very encouraged for our next generation. I love all of this intentionality that's going into parenting, to not just regurgitate what was given, but kind of change that trajectory. And that really puts you in a pinch point because you're giving something you weren't given. And that is really, you know, making your own gold, you know, turning full, squeezing it tight until you're offering someone a diamond. And it's really beautiful to see all of you guys doing that. When you were talking about your kind of initial question, it definitely made me think about my trajectory because living life with intention, having that difference of like, I really want to be impacting society for a positive and making a difference, being involved in my community, but it takes a lot of money to live. And merging those two together sometimes does feel like maybe they're pulling apart, or maybe it's so hard to link them together. And my, you know, rare moment of that 30,000 foot view is I have always had a very deep pledge to the people that I serve. I have to have confidence in my company to a certain level because every company disappoints you. And that's oftentimes why we have to learn enough about them that we move on. But that I have confidence in what I'm offering. And I used to be a car salesman, and get this, a used car salesman. Oh my God. It's so horrible. And that really did weigh on me. You know, people not knowing what I did would make very interesting comments about used car salespeople. Learning what I did, I felt like there was then this stigma. And even though that wasn't me specifically ministering to my community and maybe the way that my heart had a passion for, I still did because you do need to buy a car. When you bought a car from me, you were getting a good experience. You were getting fair dealings. You were getting someone who cared about you. So I think that that's where when we dig deep enough to know that no matter what I do, no matter what if I'm allowing myself to be involved in it, then I certainly believe in it enough to know that I'm going to do the best job for you that you can get. And through that, being this used car salesman and having to, be like, no, that's not me. Now I'm doing something that doesn't have the stigma, but I'm the same person with the same heart, providing that same level of service. And now I get to be more involved in my community. And it was a step that I didn't know where it was going to lead. And it led me right to where now part of my job is being involved with multiple nonprofits, really participating and just getting to know how can I meet your needs outside of mortgage so that when you need mortgage, I'm in your circle. So it has led me to exactly where I want to be by being a used car salesman, because I knew what my true intention and what my heart was, and the environment was going to change that. So I don't know if that ministers to somebody who feels like they have an intention that isn't being met, but if, stay true to yourself and what you believe you offer to those around you, and you will find a path to be in a place that ministers to you, to know that you're doing it to your full capacity.
What I sorry, I was just gonna say, I feel like what I keep circling back to is that, purpose may not always be the same, that it really evolves, and where, I may not have known exactly what I wanted to do coming out of high school, or, I had to figure out something. I just knew I needed to care for people. I needed to be part of a helping profession in some way. Again, that took on different iterations, and maybe, as I approached 40, I don't know whether I give a damn just busted or whatever, but I just, I really started realizing that living intentionally, whether I was sort of realizing it or not, or putting brain power and effort to it, every minute of every day, really became more about the impact that I could make, and the people I surrounded myself with, and the missions I was part of. Again, that impact that you were having on the world, and the achievements that you were earning, the degree or the career, or whatever that looked like. So, giving yourself the grace and having the flexibility to, I'm going to try this other thing, I think could be helpful.
I want to come back to your thought, Stephen, because I definitely want to hear from you. Something that stands out to me, though, at this juncture in our conversation is this part where we've talked about where we're living with this deep purpose in something that's deeply impactful, right? Has direct firsthand impact or secondhand impact if you're behind the scenes. We've talked about when you're sacrificing that part where you may not love what you do, you may not love how you spend your days, but it's on purpose. You're doing it for a reason, and you're doing it for something that matters, right? We've also talked about that part where you're doing something that you think is great, and you're showing up, doing it well as a service, and it's somewhere between invisible to actually you're surprised at the resistance that comes up in people, where you're like, what? How could that possibly be me? But they have some kind of association or some past experience that they're projecting on you, and it sucks, but you're pressing through it with the training wheels. And as you're using it as training wheels or training weights, as you're, when you get that off, you can fly because you're not worried about people's impressions of you. I mean, we all are to a degree, but you're not fighting that being held back because of that, because you know what you're doing is good. And you're like, oh, haters will hate, let's go, right? So I think we've talked about all these different areas. The thing that really stands out is whether we're choosing a path that's like, I'm going to press through it for something that has an important outcome, or whether it's something that we're having this direct impact, we're choosing to live intentionally. It's really, when I used to be a teacher, it was like at the top of my lesson plans, I wrote the objective. Like, what do I want them to get out of it? What's the skill I want them to walk away with? I could have it bullet pointed. I could have a full lesson plan with everything scripted. I could have nothing. But as long as I had that objective, I could drive toward that main thing. And I think what we're talking about, all of this, is different paths to get to living with intention. But it's just living with on purpose, regardless of the path or regardless of the thing in the season that you're in. Stephen, I want to turn it to you, and then I'd love to hear as well from the people who maybe haven't weighed in on just your thoughts. What's going through your head? How is this applying to you and to your life, your business, your profession so far?
Well, there's one idea that I've seen that I feel like we've danced on top of, but we haven't dug into or put to the spotlight yet, is sometimes being intentional is not just what you choose to do, it's a lot of what you're choosing not to do. We heard this a lot in people's career path changes. They chose not to do whatever their dad told them to do, or what their expectations were, or they stumbled upon some path and they changed directions based on what they don't want to do. And I know in my work experience, helping my clients, I see the reality is to have better health, you have to have some intentional actions. You have to choose things to do. But if you're unintentional about the things that you don't do, right, everything floods in and you no longer have the space or the time or the capacity to make that intentional choice. So I think it's kind of a sword and a shield thing, right? We carry a big sword that allows you to intentionally slash where you need to, but have a shield that blocks you from unintentionally doing the things you don't want to do. Intentionally choose the things not to do.
Love that.
Yeah.
Dave, I see that hand.
One book that maybe you've already read, but if you haven't, I would recommend it. It's from one of my favorite authors, Wayne Dyer. And he wrote a book and a whole series called The Power of Intention.
Yep.
And in The Power of Intention, he reminds everybody that once you decide that you're going to set your intention, dormant forces come alive, and you can, down to your cells, get some momentum going if you really are seriously intent on making something happen. And I think it's a terrific book that might balance out some of the additional information we're talking about here. That's one more resource for you.
Dr. Winger.
Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Stephen, one of the things that I think would definitely help with blocking out, like, just things that you don't want to do, is look at your habits of things that you do. Like every morning, I brush my teeth, wake up, brush my teeth. That's something I do without thinking. Is there something that I do in that like I don't want to do anymore? Say I scroll through social media while brushing my teeth, right? I don't want to do that. Next time I brush my teeth, I'll make sure to keep my phone up from reach. Other things like that, just things that you do absentmindedly without any thinking whatsoever. Identify those, and then identify things in that you don't want to do anymore. Intentionally think about that.
Yeah, we definitely live in a world where we just run out of space because of distractions.
Yeah. Yep. So well said. And I think that leads to a last topic that I wanted to pull out of Katie, because I want to take advantage of her being here today. And one of the things that I know about Katie, we have not talked a ton about this, but I've seen her in enough context. She's come to a lot of our educational trainings and, asked really good questions and is always showing up ready to learn. Something that I've noticed about Katie is part of how she lives with intention is being very intentional with her time. And we oftentimes talk about it's not time management, it's time prioritization, right? So to that exact point of what are we choosing that we're going, oh, this is kind of maybe taking me off track for my time that I want to use. I'd love to hear, Katie, you may or may not feel like the expert on this, and that's okay. But I'd love to hear, how do you, if you think of your week, your goal is serving babies and mothers in some pretty dire situations and getting them to a thriving life. To do that, you do a lot of fundraising, development, and a billion other hats that you wear. To do that effectively, your day has to look a certain way and your week has to look a certain way. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I live and die by my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it's probably not happening. For me, that's blocking out time to be intentional. And that hasn't always been an easy journey for me. That was something that the most amazing supervisor I ever had suggested I try, was block out time in your calendar to put the distractions away and focus on one thing. Stop looking at your emails. Focus on this one task that you have ahead of you. Get as far into that as you can and then move on to something else. But I also block out free time in my day as well, making sure that I'm leaving gaps between meetings in case something runs over and I'm having a really lovely conversation or giving a tour of our nursery and the conversation goes somewhere I didn't intend, or I need to show them something else that, just sort of came up organically where I know we can connect. It's going to allow me the time and the space to connect more deeply with that person. Building in periods where I can get up and take a walk down the hall and just go check in with my coworkers back in the nursery, that I am trying to take time It doesn't happen every day. You know, but at least a couple of times a week to start or end my day, or just the middle of the day where I know I've been staring at a computer screen and writing grants, and this is really, I'm starting to feel some anxiety around it, or I just need a break. Let's go back and connect with the mission. Let me go back and sit in the nursery for 10 minutes, talk with my colleagues, build relationship with them. How are you doing? What is today like? You know, do you need anything before I get up and get back to what I was doing? You know, to just build those relationships and reset and help me remember the purpose. You know, why am I doing this? So.
Could I ask another question about Maddie's place?
Absolutely, Dave.
How many kids? What's the scenario of how many moms and kids that you're having to work with?
It's, there are really, again, I'm gonna share two sides of a coin. So a couple of years ago, WSU did an independent study of our outcomes, and it found that the rate of neonatal abstinence syndrome, which is a subset of prenatal substance exposure here in our Spokane County community.
That's a mom who took drugs
That's
in
a parent.
pregnancy.
Yep, and it could have been anything from nicotine, caffeine. Maybe that parent is in recovery. They're on methadone or Suboxone. It could be any substance that a baby would withdraw from after. So, you know, meth, fentanyl, alcohol, all of those things. What that study found was that in 2022, the rate of NAS in our Spokane County community was 240% higher than the national average.
Wow.
That was 4 years ago. That was before fentanyl had really taken a chokehold on our community. We were still coming out of COVID. So we have reason to believe that it's even worse. On the flip side of that, since we opened about 3.5 years ago, Maddie's Place has cared for it. Actually, as I was headed out the door today to join you, a couple of our staff, a nurse and one of our nursery managers, were headed to the hospital to pick up 2 babies today. So as of the time I get back, we'll have admitted 175 babies in the last 3.5 years. One parent at a time can come stay with their infant at Maddie's Place. So in that same time, we've had nearly 100 parents come stay with their infant at Maddie's Place, where they are getting the love and the connection and the support and the resources to get into and stay in recovery. For parents that have fully engaged in our program with their infant, today 88% of them are housed in recovery and house custody of that baby. Many of those parents, this is the first time that they have had the opportunity to parent, to keep custody of a baby. Many of them have lost multiple children into the foster care system. So that's, you know, going on 100 babies that we've kept out of the foster care system in the last 3 years. We've supported another close to 80 parents that aren't staying with us, but they come and they utilize our visitation center. So for a parent that is, for whatever reason, not staying with us, is still actively stuck in addiction, we encourage them to come and visit and bond with their baby in a supervised setting where our peer support team, all with lived experience, they've been there, they've done that. I think 4 of our peer support, we've got 5 peer supports, so they all have lived experience. 4 of them are actually alumni parents whose babies came through our program.
Wow.
So for them to be able to step in and connect with these parents that are coming to us terrified, thinking they're going to lose their baby, seeing no hope of ever getting into recovery, and being able to connect with a parent that has literally done just that has been a game changer.
Would it be fair to say that just that explanation of what's going on is part of how you arrive at your intention?
It is I will tell everybody, it's my favorite part of my job. I love getting to talk about the work that we do and getting to flip the script, I think, on oftentimes what people think about folks that are struggling with addiction in our community. We see a lot of the ugly, and we don't always think about the families, the children, the infants that are impacted. And so to get to keep that front of mind and to get to help the helpers. I'm not back doing baby cares every day, but you can sure bet I'm doing everything I can out in the community, talking to people about it, building awareness about it. That's where I feel like I can be helpful, and I have a lot of passion around that.
Well,
Thanks for letting me share.
absolutely. And I think as we wrap up, before I kick it over to Jonathan to finish this up, totally, I'd love to hear how can we help you? You know, you are part of an organization that we are so grateful for. Your work in the community, we know it makes a huge impact in our Spokane community. What can we do to help?
Oh, thank you for that. There are so many places to plug in. Right now, we're not currently covered by Medicaid, and so we rely on our pilot project funding from the state legislature, and then private donations. So if you have the heart and the means to donate $5 a month, $500 a month, whatever is meaningful and helpful, or you have capacity for, I can give you a tour tomorrow and show you exactly where those dollars go. We've got so many volunteer opportunities, everything from, hey, I've got 2 hours this one time, please don't ever call me again, to I want to show up every week and take a shift cuddling a baby. And I'm going to go take the time to go through the training and the onboarding and all of that. We have group opportunities. We've got mentorship opportunities, and getting our alumni families that are graduating out of this program connected with natural supports in the community where they just have a friend. It's just having somebody to pick up the phone and call when they need a ride, or the baby is sick and they need somebody they got to get to work, need somebody to watch baby, or how do I do this? So many families are coming to us from generational cycles of poverty and trauma and substance use. 3 weeks ago, we had a volunteer come in for one of our Sunday crafternoons and bake cookies. Like, brought recipes and taught some of our parents how to bake cookies. And one of the moms had said, I'd not baked cookies before. She was learning how to use the mixer and in what order to mix the ingredients. And I got to bring my almost 11-year-old in and walk her through the same process. I wasn't a staff person. That parent wasn't a recovering mom, in some program that.
What's the average age of the moms?
It varies, probably 20s, mid-20s to mid-30s. Yeah, it kind of runs the gamut, but to show up in different ways where we can just be humans together. We just are making that connection as two people wandering through space. We don't have to wear some title or, deal with stigma. We just get to be people together.
I love that. Well, speaking of intentionality, thank you so much. That is so awesome. We'll keep it back to Jonathan to wrap us up. But just excited to have you, Katie, and we're excited to partner with you and to help spread the word how we can.
Grateful for all of you. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Yeah, everybody, thank you for participating. The thing that kept coming to my mind is a part of this is curiosity. What if I was doing something different? What if I developed a new skill? What if, and so it starts with a what if. So the what if I'm going to leave the audience at home with is, what if you came here and joined this amazing group of people and had a conversation with us? It's always sparks my curiosity. There's little nuggets. I'm like, oh, I need to think about that because maybe that's something I should explore a little bit in my life. So appreciate everybody that was here. This was a great conversation. Debbie, thank you so much. Katie, appreciate you being here. Everybody at home, come join us. We are at Dry Fly, and IDIC Designs hosted the lunch. Thank you, Rob and IDIC Designs. Thank you, Dry Fly, for hosting us. And thank you. I want to just go around the room and thank every individual person, but literally thank you all for being here. And we'll see you all next week. Next week, Christine Burns is going to host, and her guest is from
Design.
Ginger Design. And I have her name like right on the front of my brain.
Fascinating ladies, yeah.
So
that started a design firm and are expanding in the valley. So,
and we're gonna be talking about color and what color does for your spaces and all of that. So it is gonna be a good one. We will see you all next week.